Ladies and gentlemen, yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining us today for a very, very exciting topic, actually, for our session organized by COLEAD and the Pan-African Farmers Organization on the successful agroecological practices by farmers and small and medium enterprises or entrepreneurs in Africa. So very, very, very interesting. We have done many topics actually that fall into that agroecology wide area. So we will have also exciting entrepreneurs business that will share their successes and their stories and what it means to be in this area. Without major delay, I will start by telling you first you can choose English, French, and Portuguese language. You take in the globe at the bottom of your screen and you choose your language. And you have also the function chat to share some ideas, inputs, questions to the speakers that we will take in the final session of interactions. And you can also use the Q&A for the questions. So without delay, let me first, for the introduction, bring Jeremy KNOPS, who is the DG of COLEAD. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for joining us. And Jeremy is the DG of the organization I work with, an association of private sector operators, non-for-profit organization of private sector operators in the agri-food sector. And Jeremy has a background on business engineering, entrepreneurship, with a wide experience in developing countries across continents, Latin America, Africa, Caribbean, Pacific, which is one of the geographies that COLEAD has been involved in, and a really expert on private standards and certification. So thank you very much for joining us and giving us some of the insights from COLEAD perspective and COLEAD support towards entrepreneurs who are already in the area, who want to transition to more agroecological practices. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Isolina, and welcome to all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are connected. So welcome to this 20th session, quite a milestone in this partnership with BAFO. And so I'd like to first, of course, thank BAFO for this continued partnership, and Babafemi for the continued leadership, and this collaboration, which materializes amongst other in these online series, but not only. I would like, of course, also to thank fellow panelists for your time, the time you're taking during this session, of course, but during the 19 previous sessions, because we know that your time is valuable, but this is what makes these sessions so interesting for all participants. And of course, to thank participants for your continued interest and participation in these sessions, because your comments, your questions always feed the debate and our food for thought for next sessions, and we hope, of course, that all these discussions and thoughts can be continued on the Agri-Innovators platform, but I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to come back to this. So today's session, as Isolina said, is a bit like an umbrella session to a number of sessions that we've had during the past couple of years. We've looked at different dimensions linked to agroecology. As co-leader, what we do overall, our big umbrella, is to support the transformation towards sustainable agri-food systems, and to do this through the adoption of agroecological practices. And we do this because our big aim is to increase the contribution or the level of achievement of sustainable development goals. And so through a program such as Fit for Market Plus, which is one of the programs that we are managing at the moment, funded by the EU and the OACPS, across ACP countries, focusing on fruit and veg, but also on other plant-based value chains. The idea is that we work around three distinct action points, I would say. The first kind of big component of our work is to really understand the landscape, understand from a market perspective the evolutions in terms of what consumers are looking for, being on all markets, not only the European market, but also on domestic regional markets. What are consumers? What are the latest trends? What are the kind of evolutions in terms of trade flows, trade dynamics, and amongst other, of course, and specifically in our case, what interests us is of course what kind of dynamics and trends we can see around sustainable food, agroecological products. So that's one part in this understanding of the landscape. The other part in this understanding, of course, is to look at all the research outputs and innovation, and of course make sure that this can be linked directly to MSMEs and producers in the area of sustainable agri-food systems, being on inputs that are being used, being on, so when I say inputs, we're talking about plant protection products, fertilizers, soil management, water management, energy, all these components that make it fundamental today in terms of trying to drive a change at scale towards more sustainable agri-food systems through the adoption of agroecological practices. And number three, of course, it's all the regulatory and policy environment that we have around this recognized need to transition to more sustainable agri-food systems. So that's one big part of our work. Second part, of course, is the direct activity and action that we have throughout value chains with MSMEs, with producer groups, but also with their direct working environment, being competent authorities, Federation of Farmers, business membership organizations. And so there, our aim really, we've structured our entire approach around three points now. One first and foremost, in order to start a kind of partnership and work in the fields, we ask a commitment on a number of sustainability principles. That's our sustainability statement of intent. And then when it comes to producer groups and MSMEs, we have this sustainability self-assessment, which enables to identify key areas around what makes, I would say, what is considered today as a sustainable system through the adoption of agroecological practices. We have this assessment on all the dimensions on the social, environmental, economic side. And once we have this assessment, it enables us to focus, of course, on the key priority areas from the perspective, of course, of the producer or the SME, because we all know that this is can be very context specific when it comes to driving some change at local level, being on the social, environmental, economic side. And number three, it's about leveraging really the impact and disseminating further what we've been doing in the first and second components I've just described. And this is done through networks and alliances, such as the alliance we have with PAFO through, for instance, series, sharing, disseminating knowledge, best practices. That's one big part of this, leveraging the impact. And the other part is on facilitating access to finance, because what we usually see and know is that in order to kind of drive a change, drive a transition, there are in some cases, in a lot of cases, some investments that are required, meaning small equipment, small infrastructure, some change in terms of crops that are being cultivated, and that requires an access to finance. And so we're increasing our work in that area as well, because it has been identified by yourselves as one of the major blocking points at this stage to drive this transformation. So that's in a nutshell how we work around from a methodological perspective on this transition towards more sustainable agri-food systems through the adoption of agroecological practices. There's a lot of work, a lot to do if we want to drive it at scale, at speed, but it's this balance to find between the scale and speed, but also the need to take the needed time, because we're talking not only about bringing technology, but about changing practices, changing behavior, and it does take time, especially in the context of agriculture, which from that perspective is quite specific from from other sectors of our economy, of our society. I will stop here, and I will wish you all a very interesting and lively session. And again, thank you for being here with us today. Back to you, Isolina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, indeed, for underlying the complexity, I mean, for entrepreneurs and smallholders and the many support they need from COLEAD and, of course, PAFO and other organizations like ourselves with whom we collaborate strongly to, support those entrepreneurs to transition. And we'll see that even the successes were not without a lot of work behind. Without major delay, I mean, our very much loved partnership with the Pan-African Farmers Organization. And thank you for being with us, Dr. Babafemi OYEWOLE, because I know you are in a big conference and very, very busy and on demand. As you know from the 19 previous sessions, Dr. Babafemi is the CEO of the PAFO, based in Rwanda, and an executive and professional with experiences in public, private, and non-governmental sectors. You would have known him probably in some of his previous positions, like the CEO of the African Agribusiness Alliance, or the CEO of the African Cashew Alliance, or the CEO of the African Energy Investment Corporation, also in Bankers Association. So it really allows us to have, together with Jeremy and COLEAD, the different perspectives to the subject, because this entails, all the areas Jeremy has been mentioning, from production to market, safe markets to finance and so on. So Babafemi, I know that you also organization run big programs on agroecology and that you have also successes. What can you tell us from your side? Welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'm having a challenge of internet here, but I will try as much as possible to still be able to make my remarks. Like Jeremy, good morning or afternoon or evening to everyone, depending on where you are joining us for this innovation session. Once again, I'm very pleased to welcome our regular participants and newcomers to the 20th edition of the 2024 Innovation Series. PAFO and COLEAD are pleased that you have created the time to participate in today's edition with the theme Successful Agroecological Practices by Farmers and SMEs in Africa. We have chosen this theme because of the growing importance and recognition of agroecology as a practice for combating the challenge of climate change, which is causing devastating effects on agricultural production and entrepreneurship in Africa and globally. Agroecology is an approach to agriculture
I think we lost
soil fertility. Well, yes.
Go on. We lost you for a few seconds. Babafemi, we lost you for a few seconds. Perhaps if it's very difficult, we can get you a bit later. I know you are in a big conference with some issues. Okay, let's. You are muted, Babafemi. You are muted. If you.
I think the internet here is very, very poor. Okay, I hope I will be able to finish. Agroecological initiatives aims at proposing alternative paradigms to industrial agriculture based on the encouragement of local use of innovation and resources by smallholder farmers. Therefore, agroecology is not a luxury, but a necessity for the future of Africa, and indeed the world. It offers a sustainable pathway for the continent's agriculture, ensuring food security, preserving biodiversity, and empowering communities. However, despite the numerous advantages of agroecology, there are several challenges for its adoption among smallholder farmers. And this includes the need for extensive training of farmers and the science behind it, effective policies by government to support its adoption through subsidies for input, research, facilitating market access for farmers and SMEs by promoting new supply chains and market opportunities, which could be costly. Investment in new technologies, capacity building, and infrastructure facilities, which smallholder farmers and SMEs need to operate effectively and efficiently, and linkages with research and development for innovation and best practices. Therefore, the transition to agroecology requires a multi-stakeholder approach involving the public and private sectors for capacity building, market development, and infrastructural development, supported by enabling policies. The important advantages of agroecological practices is the motivating factor for PAFO to supporting its members to transition into agroecology for best agricultural practices and increase productivity that will ensure food and nutritional security in Africa. It is also the belief that agroecology will create a continental agroecology advocacy strategy. Build the capacity of its members for agroecology of experts and expertise of the resource persons that have been assembled to discuss this thing, and the active participation of all participants. PAFO and COLEAD are committed to enhancing the capacity of African smallholder farmers, SMEs, businesses, so that they can take advantage of the opportunities that are emerging and existing through sustainable innovation and good business practices. I wish you all a productive session. Thank you and welcome again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Babafemi, despite the difficulties you have with the connection and so on, joining us. And perhaps you can come in at the question part, I mean the interaction with the audience. So thank you very much. I wouldn't go through the all areas. They have been highlighted by Jeremy and Babafemi, and in the detailed note, background note you have as well. But certainly what we want, some of the key points for discussion are, what are the key innovations that farmers and entrepreneurs develop and adopt that contribute to agroecological transitions? Because Jeremy told that it's a whole transition that requires a lot of things to be fixed, and what type of investments are needed as well to make this transition to a more sustainable practices, and what incentives can be provided by different organizations for SMEs and smallholders to embrace agroecology. So I will go to our first speaker, who will tell us, of course, not only what the business or the organization is doing, but how it answers some of those questions, and now it has benefited the community. So Nancy Mugimba is the national coordinator of ESAFF, that stands for Eastern and Southern Africa Small Scale Farmers Forum, based in Uganda. Thank you very much for joining us. You have really dedicated a big part of your career to the community development, which is really what we encourage as well in those sessions, advancing farming practices that prioritize sustainability from the point of view of environment, biodiversity, and resilience for smallholders. And you have worked a lot as well, not only on smallholders, but on women, which are very much often forgotten, or the latest to be supported, and advocating for sustainable farming practices. So we would like to hear what ESAFF does in terms of biodiversity conservation, soil health, resilience to climate change, and some of the successes you have. Thank you very much, Nancy. You have the floor. And Axel will kindly share your PowerPoint also to avoid connection problems. Thank you, Axel, as well.
Yeah, so welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. As you've heard, I'm Nancy from ESAFF Uganda. Yeah, so I'll go straight to the presentation. Thank you. In ESAFF, we have something called community agroecology schools, and These feed into the agroecology business hub, and I'll be defining the two. So community agroecology schools are community-based learning platforms. If I could say in simple terms that these are schools without walls that are within the communities. And here farmers come together to learn from each other, share experiences, and later they replicate whatever they have learned onto the farms and in their households. Here, farmers teach each other ways of dealing with the different challenges. If there's some new knowledge that one of them has discovered, that also comes up in those schools. Next slide, please. So I would say that the way the community agroecology schools operate, or their approach, is that these farmers within the communities face challenges or face issues that are unique to their communities. So the way it works is that there's usually community mobilization. They come together, they mobilize one another, and then they will operate a curriculum of their choice. So within this group, they decide what exactly they want to focus on as a school that is unique to their community. And when they decide what they want to focus on, let me say pest control, then they will come up, they will look for someone within their group who has knowledge on how to agroecologically control pests, if I can give that as an example. So this person will share their knowledge about an issue, and then when the others learn, they will go back to their farms and replicate whatever they have learned. So that means that there is a lot of use of agroecology gardens, and of course the approach is peer-to-peer learning. And we also have seen that this is something that is not limited just to the farmers. You know that in communities, there are other people like nurses, there are people like teachers. All these people need food. So what happens is that in the end, when I'm learning from my neighbor and it works, then the knowledge will spread because it's working. So one of the things that has happened is that now, for example, the people that chose the curriculum of pest management using the locally available materials within their community, notice that there is a need, let me say, to have more pesticides that, you know, churned out for other people to use. So somehow those challenges come up, they end up in collective business ventures. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we launched in ESAFF, the Agroecology Business Hub, and the main purpose was to support small-scale farmers, especially women with entrepreneurial skills, with a focus on agroecology. We wanted to spark the growth of agroecological business within the communities and bring together farmers, scientists, decision makers to jointly develop solutions that support social justice, ecological resilience, and economic viability. So when you look at the many communities, their challenges are around, usually in agroecology, they will tell you, you know, agroecology is not viable business-wise, or they will tell you, do you have any research, you know, that is related to the viability of agroecology. So within the community agroecology schools and the agroecology business hub, one of the other things we wanted to do is to develop a knowledge hub and to also create research findings that we can rely on when we are presenting the case of promotion of agroecology as a viable business, you know, business venture. So in the business hub, we focus on capacity development of the farmers, because many of them do not have the registrations. Many of them lack the knowledge of business development, and many of them lack mentorship. Sometimes the products they have are not, they don't know how to present them so well, so that, you know, they are highly marketable. So when we develop the capacity, I talk about the knowledge, and then also their capacity to compete, you know, in the market, maybe the market around them, and maybe outside of their community to other communities, and then also at the national level. So we also offer access to affordable credit. And in this, the ventures will identify something that they need. And usually they are low capital kind of credit. For example, we have a group that is doing peanut butter, and they need a machine, you know, and this machine is less than $500. So what we do is that we shall get the machine, and usually they pay back, you know, at a very low rate. So that what they've used to pay is also used to help another group. So it's very, very affordable credit that we offer them in the hub. And at least so far, we have seen a big change. And then also access to favorable markets, because the hub connects farmers with agroecological products and the people who buy these products. And we see that when a product is well packaged and a bit improved, at least its value added, it sells more on the market as compared to when they just put a raw material on the market. So through the hub, we have seen that at least these farmers have moved a step further. And also we thought that usually when there are all these innovation hubs for business, usually at the vetting point, small-scale farmer groups don't usually go beyond, you know, they usually don't go beyond some stage because they don't have many things. So those are the gaps that the business hub, the agroecology business hub in ESAFF is trying to close. So among some of the successes we have seen are the joint research that is continually carried out and solutions charted for the challenges that are specific within those communities. We have seen farmers formulate their own biofertilizers and pesticides, and these are products that they keep improving. Someone once asked us that how do you regulate the amount of the amount of chemical or the amount of fertilizer, that how do you measure it to know that this is exactly the thing that will solve the problem? But farmers know how to carry out their research, and that is what we are trying to quantify when we go to the communities to see what they are doing. Then the hurdles in business are gradually being leveled. For example, many of them are now using the participatory guarantee system to ensure that there is no chemical use, and to act as accountability partners for their fellow group members, to see that what is produced is healthy to consume. And then the target for that is that when the product goes out to the market and it's labeled, let me say, it's labeled organic, and someone takes it to the lab just to prove whether it's organic or not, that at least that it will be true to it, that the product is actually healthy to consume. Then we've also seen a growth of a grassroots agroecology movement as a community agroecology schools are open to individuals from everywhere, teachers, nurses, local leaders. And one thing maybe I didn't mention is that sometimes the group will meet and they have challenges that they don't have a solution from within the group, and that will necessitate them to to go and contact the extension worker of government. And, you know, sometimes this person will have some extra knowledge and will come and share it with the group. So it's kind of building slowly by slowly a movement of people who believe that they can solve within their communities, that they can solve issues that are faced by the small-scale farmers. Local district officials also gained interest in the agroecology schools, and they offer their technical support because every time the groups meet and local district leaders have special interest where people are, they must find out what is going on in those particular places and what is this that everyone is talking about? What is this group all about? So they will join those groups to learn, because when they find out the foundation on which these schools are formed, it's actually knowledge that everyone needs in order to raise a healthy family and also to live a healthy life. So we are also able to nurture model farmers in the communities, and this has helped to establish farmer-to-farmer learning, which is really our goal, and also beyond farmer-to-farmer learning. Next slide, please. So this is a group of women who received a peanut grinding machine under the agroecology business hub, and here they were learning how to use it, how to put fuel, and how to keep it safe, how to keep the peanut paste safe from the fuel. So this was just a demonstration that was going on. Next slide, please. On the left, you see a group of cassava processing. It's a cassava processing group. And yes, here I'll accept that they were using rudimentary ways of drying their cassava, but have so far improved, and now they have other cleaner methods of drying it, and it's now being milled. Something about this cassava is that this group identified a gap in, they wanted to provide cassava flour that is low in carbohydrates, so in starch. So there's a way they process it, and the starch, most of the starch is removed. And when they dry it and package it, it's a healthy product for people who have issues like diabetes. And then on the right, you'll see a pineapple growing group was trying to sort out which pineapples they will take to the market and which ones they will be able to process. So this group was approached by a farm from Japan, and they wanted organic pineapples, a very high tonnage. So when they approached us, at that time they were growing their pineapples with chemicals. So we got them some trainers, and they took them through how to grow pineapples organically. So this was their third harvest of organic pineapples. They have not yet reached the point of providing the full tonnage, but at least we have encouraged them to get into other things like producing jam and, you know, drying the pineapples for the market. So this is these are the first stage of sorting out the pineapples. Next slide, please. Yeah, so finally, this is a picture. Yeah, this is a picture of a group of women who are producing their own pesticide, and here they package it. This is sold within the community because of obvious issues. It's not yet accredited or anything. So they package it in jerry cans and sell to each other, and in a way they are able to raise their own income. Next slide. Thank you very much for listening. Yes.
Thank you very much, Nancy, for the very interesting presentation. And indeed, the big part of any agroecological practice attempt is really to work very closely with smallholders, farmers, train them and to do the path together. That's one of the fundamentals. So very happy to see the trainings you do while you're, of course, marketing, being a business, and all the peer-to-peer or farmer field schools and all the trainings you do. Very, very interesting. I'm sure that it will generate many questions, and specifically as well on the credit, on access to credit, which is so difficult, to get for small groups. We get back to you, so with no major delay.
And now, without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to Sophie from Burkina Faso. Sophie is going to talk about La Saisonnière. As a large number of speakers today, Sophie is also a trainer in agroecological products, and she's an independent consultant. She deals with smallholders in peri-urban areas, not far away from Ouagadougou, for instance. We'd like to listen to Sophie, and I believe Axel is going to help us make the presentation. Sophie, you have the floor, and thank you for joining us from Burkina. Hello, everyone, and thank you to the organizers. And hello, Isolina. I'm really pleased to be one of the panelists today. Like all the other speakers, I will tell you about my organization, and I will tell you about our successes and our challenges. Okay, change slides. So you have here a picture of our garden at La Saisonnière, which is the name of our association. Next slide. Okay, so this is the plan of my presentation. First, I'm going to introduce La Saisonnière, then I'm going to give you a definition of farmers' agroecology. I will tell you about practices that have been developed, our achievements, and some of the difficulties we encountered. So next slide. Thank you. So La Saisonnière is an association of women who are working to improve vulnerable people's resilience in the face of climate change. And they do so by promoting and disseminating agroecological practices that protect the environment and develop the value chain. So the primary aim of La Saisonnière is to fight and put an end to female poverty. Next slide, please. La Saisonnière was set up back in 2003 as a group of female producers. It was started by Sophie Sedgho, a retired high school teacher of life and earth sciences. I was particularly interested in ecological issues and the environment, and our activities were mainly based on promoting local products. Next, please. Thank you. In 2006, La Saisonnière became a development association whose scope covered the whole of the country while diversifying activities. The objective was to contribute to the development of women, improve their living conditions, and protect the environment in order to achieve sustainable development. Next slide. Our mission, well, La Saisonnière aims for a society where women are not socially or economically vulnerable. As part of its production strategy, La Saisonnière promotes the development of local agroforestry fruit, and it also ensures that a fair, socially responsible, and ecological approach is taken at all levels of the production chain. Long-term objectives to contribute to the promotion of women's social economic rights, to contribute to the economic empowerment of women, and to help protect the environment. I'm going to give you now our definition of farmers' agroecology. Farmers' agroecology is defined as a reference to food and farming systems geared towards family farming and food sovereignty. It is based on securing natural resources, safeguarding the genetic diversity of cultivated land, sustainable farming practices based on notions of complementarity and adaptability, enhancing the role of women and young people, promoting local food systems, collective action, and developing public policies favorable to agroecology. So, farmers' agroecology really takes into account the local environment. So we give great importance to the seeds which are produced by the farmers themselves. So we encourage them to produce their own seeds. We want this type of agriculture to be sustainable. So this definition is based on certain principles of agroecology in line with the FAO principles, which are essentially the health of the good health of the soil, animal health and welfare, biodiversity, governance of land and natural resources, because you can do organic agriculture without really having good governance. I mean, if you only grow salads, this is not agroecology. There needs to be biodiversity. So this is one of the guiding principles of our association. So governance of land and natural resources is also important because in our country, women have great difficulty in having access to land. This is extremely important for us to make women in charge. Social values and the type of diet as well as connectivity is important. So the role of women is highly valued because they represent the majority of producers, or at least our clients, mainly women. Through its philosophical, social, environmental, and economic dimensions, farmers' agroecology integrates all forms of ecological, organic, and fair trade agriculture. It is the key to preserving mankind and the planet today and in the future. Next. My next item deals with agroecological practices which were developed. La Saisonnière is developing its own agroecological practices. These are sustainable practices and they're based on solutions which rely on nature and the environment. They can be adapted and they are resilient to climate change. I'm going to mention some of them. Here in our gardens, we have several types of beds, agricultural beds, depending on climate and seasons. For instance, we have beds with different configuration, including zai beds, half moon beds, raised beds, furrows, biomes. Some of these beds can be compost beds or mounds. They are called sometimes sandwich mounds because they are made of organic material which decomposes, which will keep the fertilizing nature of the bed. In agroecology, we do not use chemical pesticides. So we need to have organic input. So La Saisonnière, our association, is manufacturing a biopesticide which can be used as a biofertilizer. There are many elements such as local yeast, because local yeast means microorganisms that will be highly efficient and it will enable to fight against microbial invasion. It's also a biofertilizer because it brings nitrogen to the plant. And so this bio input is called in our local language tukjili, which means the input which does everything. It fertilizes and it fights against pests. We also produce biochar from household waste, but also from field residues. Indeed, we noticed that biochar, this type of input, allows the plant to incorporate nitrogen in sufficient quantities to reduce or to fight pest and reduces water consumption. So this is the conclusion that we came to. In general, we use neem seed powder, which is a local product. So the use of this neem seed powder is a priority, as is the maceration of the leaves of local plants, such as Acacia africana. So this Acacia africana attacks the toughest parasites, and it will allow the plant to grow and be fed. There are, for instance, nematodes which attack the tomato plant. And so the Acacia africana is one way to protect the tomato. Madame Sophie, if you don't mind to conclude. Okay, let me say a few words about our achievements. We've been training women in organic farming and agroecology. It's a real conversion, and we've been able to create a real network. We have met some difficulties, of course, like everyone else, because of the lack of funding, which hampers us in the acquisition of compost. We also have the problem of local socio-cultural beliefs, which need to be tackled by clarifying values. You know, we say yes to positive values, no to negative values. Thank you very much for your attention and for your time. So you see now some pictures of above ground cultivation. And if you can show the last picture, go on. The very last picture shows that agroecology also promotes an above ground cultivation, an above ground agriculture, because young people who come to us are interested in this type of agriculture. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't take too much of your time. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sophie. It was extremely interesting. And thank you for insisting on the concept of farmers' agroecology, because there is another type of agroecology which is slightly different. But this shows that by adapting and adopting farmers' seeds, by insisting on proper governance of the land, and by insisting on some values which require lots of efforts, which do not happen overnight. We will probably have lots of questions for you at the very end. We would like you to say a few words about how you put your markets, your products on the market, and who does that for you.
First session, our last speaker is Rosinah Mbenya. She's the country coordinator of PELUM, an organization based in Kenya. Well, it's in different you have to mute somebody, based in different countries, but Rosinah is the country coordinator of PELUM in Kenya. She will tell us PELUM is a membership organization, and therefore they have many examples as well of agroecological principles and practices, you know, adopted and used among smallholders, farmers, and pastoralists. You are an environmentalist by profession and a very good, you have been working very efficiently and for a very long time with smallholders and communities. So you will, and you are very passionate as well. Congratulations, because you won recently the Leading African Woman in Food Fellowship Award and the Agroecology Leadership Academy. So congratulations again, and please share some of the good experiences from PELUM with us. Rosinah, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Isolina, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever we are. I also appreciate the organizers of this very important convening, and I will be glad to talk about two silent whales in the work of agroecology, particularly in transforming the food systems. I will be looking at the inclusion and more so of women, leadership capacities, and also policy. These are, to me, silent tools which are very, very necessary to transforming our food systems. As introduced, I'm Rosinah Mbenya, the country coordinator of PELUM Kenya. And I won't talk a lot about PELUM Kenya, but it's a membership, and we have 63 member organizations across the country in all the 47 counties of Kenya. And we are promoting agroecological principles and practices. Our main focus is capacity enhancement and networking. We do a lot of policy and advocacy and also knowledge management with a keen interest on these various thematic areas: sustainable natural resource management, climate resilience, agro-enterprise and market development, and youth involvement in agroecology. Yes, so today I talk about women in leadership as a silent tool for food systems transformation. As PELUM Kenya, we are the Secretariat of the African Women Leaders in Agroecology, which is a women in leadership initiative. And the aim of these African women leaders in agroecology is to inspire, mentor, nurture, and fast-track the leadership development of the African women. We realize that many cultural issues and other hindrances have made women not to take a leading role, and this has caused a lot of delays in the change that we need to see in food systems transformation and also in agroecology. And therefore, these African women leaders for us has been a tool, and we see it is very important. One, we see that it is going to ensure that we are having a critical mass of women who are being mentored and coached on leadership issues, and women also who are driving agro-enterprise initiatives and innovations. We also see that this also helps in capacity for women in the principles on the practice of enterprise development, and also supporting the role of women in policy influencing. So this initiative started in 2020, and so far we have been able to pilot in 3 African countries, the ones in black. But by end of next year, or actually very soon, we are going to be rolling out to Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, Nigeria, Senegal, and Tunisia, and Morocco, so that we have a reach of 10 African countries where we are having women being mentored, coached on issues of leadership. We have this initiative, yes, in the 3 African countries, but it's also in a way reaching to many, many other African countries, because we also have embraced online meetings whereby we share a lot of information, and that is not restricted to the 3 countries. We are able to reach out to many, many more. Also, last year, we were able to organize a Women in Agroecology Expo, and we shall also be organizing more. And that way, we also reach out to more and more women. But the three countries are the ones which we focus in terms of mentorship and coaching, which is the main driver of the core of this initiative. So in the AWOLA initiative, we have already graduated the first cohort, And as I said, mentorship and coaching is the core to this. And is a demand-driven mentorship and coaching whereby applicants apply and we are able to match mentors and mentees based on the mentor needs and the mentee, the mentee needs and the mentor strengths. And then they engage in a mentorship and coaching. They are able to develop a personal development plan, and every month they have to meet physically with the mentor and mentee so that they can be able to look at how progressing they are. Per country, you have 6 mentors and mentees at the moment, and we have already graduated the first cohort. And just read a few quotes, like the first one is a lady from Uganda, and she said, what a rewarding experience it has been for her to hold another woman's hand, showing them that the agroecology dream can be a reality. Just to emphasize that in the AWOLA initiative, what has been able to drive us is that for a long time, we have been talking about women issues, and then we brought about different women leaders across the continent, and particularly the 3 pilot countries. And we were asking ourselves, what can we do to be able to change and transform the space of women in leadership? And that's how the AWOLA was born. It was a consultative thinking for over 2 years. We were just brainstorming on meetings and asking ourselves, how do we intervene? And that's how we ended up having this. And this was also a push, because for many times we go to meetings and you hear the women, especially the seasoned women leaders, talking and also requesting for how do they pass the baton, how do they pass the knowledge they have, how do they empower others. And therefore this AWOLA is also an opportunity for those seasoned women leaders to be able comfortably to pass on the knowledge to the next generation, and also to have these young emerging women leaders equipped with the skills and knowledge that can enable them fight the leadership hurdles that they may have at different levels, maybe from community level to organizational level, and so on. As the AWOLA, as I said, we have also started a lot of influencing on policy. We have our AWOLA mentors and mentees being empowered to speak up, to influence policies, and this has been helpful. You can see this was during the Eastern Africa Agroecology Conference, and we had a team of women who were actually speakers, panelists, and so on, and they were driving the agenda and pushing for issues that talk about women and agroecology in general. This photo is the graduation for the first cohort of AWOLA. And this was a photo we took in the Agroecology Expo, whereby we brought women just to showcase what they are doing in agroecology and to inspire others who may want to do so, and also to encourage them and show that they are also doing something that is worth attention. So we had that platform for learning, sharing, and networking for women, and it was very, very successful in Kampala. These are some of the women mentors and mentees. Like this is Fatma Zahara. She's exporting organic vegetables and fruits, and she has been actually a driver to empower others. Yes, it's possible, you can do it. You can be at whichever level of agroecology work. And this is Lea Maura, who is one of the mentees. She was speaking at the African Fertilizer and Soil Summit, and she's also here in Rwanda with me at the Africa Food System Summit. And yes, these young women, they are taking up spaces. This is someone else called Lilian Mudeu, and she's also speaking on policies and legislations. Now, we have documented the stories of change from the first cohort, and I want to just talk about one of the mentees, who is Terry Alvinza. And Terry Alvinza, when she was matched with her mentor, Esther Bett, our desire was to be challenged to do more in the community. Initially, also, she had identified deepening her agroecological skills, so that she's a community worker in one of the NGOs. She was feeling like she needs more push on, more knowledge on agroecological skills, and also a challenge on how she can engage on our community development work better. And why I picked this story of Terry is that she was challenged by a mentor that, yes, I've mentored you, but you don't need to keep quiet. Can you also mentor others? And Terry reached out to one of the ladies in the community who was the most, to her was a very vulnerable lady, one being a widow, 2 having come from the dry areas of Ahero in Kisumu, and 3, she was really struggling even to make food for the table, and they would either have one meal or even go without a meal in a day. And she had shied away even coming out in development meetings because she was feeling she's a widow, she has all these challenges, and she was feeling like disempowered. And when Terry talked to this lady, they started a mentorship plan, and she encouraged her, yes, your soil is infertile, but I'll teach you how to empower, to have it more fertile through agroecological practice. And they started, even Terry would go an extra mile to even provide seeds for this lady to plant and so forth. And as we speak, this lady is now able to plant the vegetables. She has also fruits on her farm. And within a period of 10 months, she's now able to sell a vegetable at farm gate and making like $1 or so in a day. And that is for us is an achievement because she's now able to feed her children, and she's also able to feed herself. She also encouraged this lady to look for other widows because she had realized the story of the widow. And they brought together other 7 widows who had similar challenges. And all these women now have been mentored, and they are making their own food. They have even been able to come up with a group saving and loaning scheme. They started with saving 50 shillings, Kenya shillings, that's like $50 a day. And since after the 10 months, it increased their incomes. Now they are able to save 100 Kenya shillings per week, I mean. And they are able to loan themselves and do a little bit of work. And they are very empowered. And I picked this quote from Pamela: "I've realized the destiny of a person lies within one's attitude, perception, and personal commitment. My song has changed." Now you can later download this in our website, PELUM Kenya. You go to the publication sector, look for Awola Stories of Change, and you'll be able to read many, many stories. There's also another director of one of the local organizations who was shying away. Anytime she's invited to such meetings or where platforms where she can talk about her work, she would just deny, say she's busy, or just give excuses because she had come from a situation whereby she was feeling her English was not good. She's not good at speaking. She was just not empowered. But I'm telling you, this year alone, she has been in forums in Germany. She has been in forums in the US, and she's actually showing the world her work. So those stories, you can look at them, and I feel they are very, very encouraging as we graduated just our first cohort, and I can't wait to see more and more cohorts and more stories coming from the women. So I'll also talk about National Agroecology Strategy for Food Systems Transformation in Kenya. I think one of the silent wheels for agroecology is the policy, because at the end of the day, we need all these favorable policies that can support the work we are talking about, the very good stories that have come from Burkina Faso, from Rwanda, from Uganda, and globally. And in Kenya, we are at very advanced stages of having a national agroecology strategy. PELUM Kenya has played a very key role, and we started this process towards the end of 2022. And we already are we have already done the validation of the strategy. We are now waiting the launch. And the launch by now we should have launched this strategy, but in Kenya, the recent process made some changes in the cabinet secretary, and now we have a new cabinet. So we are trying to maneuver that change, but it is going to be launched this year. And the strategy in itself, it looks at the addressing challenges that are related to fragile food systems, of course, declining productivity, the soils. In Kenya, we have very acidic soils. We are also looking at limited access to and consumption of safe foods and healthy foods. We are also looking at policy and institutional framework that are enabling and including incentives for supporting agroecology. It is also looking at how we can have agroecology in research, curriculum, and the practice, and also gender and social inequalities that are the issues of indigenous communities, women, youth, smallholder farmers. So all those issues are there. I may not go into the detail of the strategy, but just to pick on some of the areas. For example, in the transition of resilience, these are some of the strategic areas. Transition to resilient and sustainable food systems through agroecology. We have these strategic areas. One, we are looking at aspects of increasing productivity, and there is a very, very strong focus on bio-inputs, which is in this strategy. We're also looking at issues of farmer management systems. We're also looking at how do we restore landscapes. The other thing is we are looking at how do we support consumption or consumer trends, which is a push for healthy and sustainable diets. And looking at how do we have also transition to circular economy or circular food systems that are good and safe for human consumption, and also to promoting the safe environments, and also promotion and consumption of indigenous foods. Actually, since 2022, in Kenya, we have been having the National Seed Fair and Culture Food Fest. So we are trying to promote our traditional foods, and indigenous foods is also one of the areas, because some of these indigenous foods are resilient. They are also easier in terms of transitioning to agroecology or scaling up agroecology. The other area is enabling policy environment. How do we promote sustainable financing models for agroecology, for example? How do we even have incentives that scale up agroecology? How do we even strengthen markets and trade for agroecology products? So we are just looking at the whole institutional framework of policy, including how do we have enough budgets for some of these interventions, even at national level and county level. And also, since Kenya is a country which has devolved system of governance, then looking at how do we support the transition to the counties to also have some of these strategies in place and being implemented, because agriculture is a devolved function. And also, in terms of research, we are looking at prioritizing some of this research into our national agriculture system, also into our curriculums, into the national curriculums, also having like centers of excellence which can promote agroecology, and basically revitalizing our traditional foodways and indigenous technical knowledge around issues of agroecology. And finally is the issue of inclusion, that is how do we scale up women, youth, vulnerable groups in terms of their participation in agroecology, and even the indigenous communities. How do we ensure that women, youth are all actively involved and having meaningful engagement in the food systems? Now, since we are going to launch this strategy at the end of the year, what next, especially for us as CSOs and also at the country level, what I foresee is, one, as PELUM Kenya, we are committed to ensure there's consistent advocacy for the implementation of the national strategies, because I know some of the countries, even Kenya included, are very good at coming with policies and strategies, but after they are there, they are put in the shelf. So we want to ensure that this policy is not going to be in the shelf, but everyone is going to be actively implementing it at county levels and even at national levels. We shall do massive advocacy campaigns around it. The other thing is also we shall do awareness, grassroots awareness, all levels of awareness, various stakeholders, community, media, everyone, to be aware that we have this strategy. This is what it talks about. This is where we are seeing ourselves going in the strategy. And then one of the things actually we are going to do this year is on the 6th and 7th of November this year, we are going to have the National Agroecology Symposium, which we shall also talk about the strategy. We shall also bring a lot of scientific tracks. We shall also bring a lot of like exhibitions and even farmers to showcase that agroecology is working and it's possible. And also, as the strategy is being launched, we are also looking at matrices for measuring impact and change, so that we can be able to report and have a system just like the comprehensive CADIP, Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Mechanism, which is very clear on how countries report and so forth. So this one will also look at how do countries even report, how do we gather all the stories that are happening and the change that is happening, so that we can track the change that comes with this strategy. And then strengthening governance and reporting mechanisms of the national agroecology strategy. There is a clear governance structure of this strategy, and therefore we hope that is going to play a key role. And there is also a very strong focus on bioinputs, that we want to see it taking up and having more focus on bioinput, because we see it as a key driver of the food system. So that's my final slide. I pick on one of the innovations from one of our members, this is Organic Agriculture Center of Kenya. In Kenya, there is this growing contribution of towards biological inputs, and this is in Muranga County, and they are packaging these organic fertilizers, which are very useful, and the tea farmers some of them have used them, and they are giving a lot of positive feedback, and we hope to scale up such of these practices. So thank you so much. You can read about our work on the website, on the social medias. We are in all social medias. Please follow us. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Rosinah, for having covered two important topics that we hadn't dealt so far. One, the underlooked role, current role and potential role in future of women in agroecology. That's critical, and I hope we can work more on that. And the national agroecology policies, because indeed, if policies are not in place, there are some countries in Africa who have them, but if those are not in place and applied and done in a very consultative way, as you have mentioned, it is very difficult to move on, to scale and to really support stakeholders to embrace agroecological transitions. So we will get back to you. I encourage you to put questions as well. From my side, I would like to know more also on the market, since there is no kind of certification of agroecological products, how this can be done, that there is a premium price as well to agroecological, agroecologically produced items. So let's, because we are a bit behind, but it's all very interesting. Let me get the floor to Noël, and then we finish by ROPPA. Noël Nguessan is the co-founder of LONO in Côte d'Ivoire. So you will tell us about, because Rosinah had mentioned already all the circular food systems. So you are in the middle of it, of trying to, reduce waste, but as not only reducing waste generated by smallholders, but converting that waste into productive resources, bio inputs, etc., which has been mentioned many times and which is really at the core of the agroecological discussion. And you are also, like the other speakers, and this is a big part of agroecology, training smallholders, training SMEs, small private sector operators, to not only embrace agroecology, but really to be productive and efficient in that. It's not just saying, you have to do it. It's just to succeed in it. So please, I give you the floor, and you are originally from Côte d'Ivoire. Although I know that you are now in other countries in Africa. Please, Noël, thank you very much.
Hi, Isolina. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the organization. Yeah, indeed, as introduced, the company is called LONO, but we try to make agroecology accessible, by making the tools available. A lot of things that have been said earlier about like standards, about data, all this stuff is key, because at the end, it is commercial sectors that this has to fit into. And therefore, this is what we try to do. Can I have the slides up, or should I do this? Let's see. Then I can do the screen share. 1 second. Oh, no, it looks good. Yeah, so LONO in Côte d'Ivoire, we provide services to farmers and cooperatives to make agroecology accessible. And I'll focus a little bit on some of the implemented projects. Let me do the screen share then.
We saw the PowerPoint and then it went. Oh yeah, it's coming now. Great.
Okay, so going full screen. So we provide agroecological services and products to farmers in West Africa. So one keyword that was mentioned, one of them was agroecology for small farmers, donc l'agroécologie pour les paysans, en milieu paysan. Et puis, and biodiversity, soil biodiversity especially is what we look at, because there's also biodiversity above the ground. In terms of the example that was given earlier, having a field with just lettuce, even if it's bio, might not be agroecological, but there's the biodiversity under the ground. So just quickly, West Africa in general, but a small focus on Côte d'Ivoire being so agricultural focused, and therefore improving agricultural systems allows you to achieve a lot of SDG goals. And the value chains that we focus on are the waste value chains. So the material that's already harvested and not used. So therefore, the investment to have the material available is low because it's already there. But I will focus a bit on the cases that we worked on. So one of them is on-site compost production or biogas production to facilitate the transition to agroecological practices. So having cooperatives in a cooperative business school model. I mean, I heard about farmer field schools, there's farm business schools and cooperative business schools. These are the different approaches that at LONO we've been using more and more. So from that perspective, the cooperative could see waste management, waste collection, organic fertilizer production, even soil analysis as a service it provides to its members. And for us, this only strengthens the entire value chain for organic fertilizers and all the stuff around it. So that's the type of thing we do, and it makes the transition commercially viable, every step sort of commercially viable. And for the steps that are not commercially viable, we can identify that in advance and seek the appropriate funding. So at this facility, we produce about 1,000 tons of organic fertilizer a year from different types of biomass. So from cashew, cacao, cassava. We use only vegetable biomass on this site for health reasons, because of a safety reason, because of a chicken farm nearby that we don't want to contaminate. But the end product is a brand, and that's good because, I mean, it's expensive in the beginning, but in the medium term, you build a trust in a brand. Our price positioning is to be, as accessible as possible for smallholder farmers. So we are almost 30 or 40% cheaper than the next product on the market, for the reason that it must be promoting that transition for the smallholder farmers. And the value chains, every value chain is demanding these types of products if the price is right. So horticulture, whether it's fruits or vegetables, but also typical cash crops like cotton or cacao. And the soils, what we're seeing in the trials, we've set up almost 200 different trial plots in Côte d'Ivoire, but also Burkina Faso and Ghana. And what we see, the response is very strong in terms of agronomical response. It's very strong because the soils are quite depleted of organic matter. So the need for biodiversity in the soil is clear. So here, for example, one of the cases with the cooperative, we try and combine compost and biochar. So that was also mentioned earlier. The two really go together as like, it's better than 1 + 1. So it's just a no-brainer for us to combine the two. And then there's the big demand also for the carbon that's associated with biochar use in the soil. So that's that, and it creates jobs. So this unit you're seeing on the side here, about 4 jobs, and through the production and sale of the fertilizer, they cover the costs of collecting the waste and paying these workers. So it's clear. And then in some cases, we as in LONO, we can be off-takers even of this compost to facilitate this distribution. So this is with a cocoa cooperative, and this is a real photo of a demo plot 500 meters from the site. We're getting more and more into the carbon footprint assessments. It just makes a business case stronger, but it eventually can even facilitate investments or let's say financing for cooperatives or farmer organizations that want to get into this business. Another interesting case that is meeting some success is on the biogas. So we manufacture also these compact container-sized digesters that are made for West African context. And on this site, it's a bit the same model as well, that the farmer organization or the organization doing the processing owns this asset, uses it, and then produces gas and fertilizer that they can trade and use to repay the financing. So it's supposed to be commercially viable and grow by itself and so that the scalability is also organic, So there also we see the job creation, but this is a bit early stage. We need to see for a few more months the production, the output, and confirm the availability. But we now set up in Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina, and Guinea, and Conakry. Some trials with mango exporters, dryers, and also pineapple producers in Côte d'Ivoire on the cacao sector. So these kinds of things for us is I mean, it's a good approach for our context to introduce agroecological practices because it stays at the right scale of the smallholder farmers. The technology is well understood, but can be simplified, so low tech. If you see the biochar kilns we use here, the Kontiki kilns, they're very low tech, but they work well. They can be certified for the carbon as well. Same with composting. It's a simple process, but you still have to know the foundation of it and the biogas as well. I think I'll stop here and then hear your questions and feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Noël, for sharing this with us. And of course, the opportunities it represents for smallholders, as well as, and I hope we get back to that on the debate after our last presentation, the opportunities all this, circular economy provides in terms of employment as well for entrepreneurs, smallholders obviously, but entrepreneurs, and how the benefits which are economic, social, and environmental can be taken into account because some of the benefits are long-term, obviously, and they cannot be measured just with the same economic terms as any commodity. And there are really long-term benefits that are already demonstrated. So our last speaker now is du ROPPA.
Kosipola Alua, I believe you are present. Normally in the program, Ousseini Ouedraogo, who is the CEO of ROPPA, was supposed to take the floor, but I believe you're together attending a conference and it's not always easy to get free time. So thank you very much for being with us. I know that ROPPA has been fighting for a long time on the side of the small producers and smallholders. We'd like to hear what you've been doing in terms of transitioning to agroecology, what you've been doing about farmers' seeds. Can you tell us in less than 10 minutes about your experience, about some of the challenges and some of the achievements and successes that you've had, and how have you been able to influence the policy in your area? Thank you and welcome, Kosi. Thank you. Thank you. I'm Kosipola, and I come from the executive secretariat of ROPPA. I don't know whether you can see my screen. Yes, we can. So as you were indicating, I will try to share with you some of our successes at a strategic and political level, but also at an operational level, and that we have achieved thanks to our platform. My presentation will deal with three main issues. Some key information about ROPPA, the strategic and political successes, and the operational successes. So ROPPA is a network of farmers association in West Africa. So it's an organization of farmers, but at a regional level. And it is represented in 15 countries of West Africa through national platforms. Within these platforms, we have national federations that are members of these platforms. There are 13 national platforms and 2 which are underway in Nigeria and in Cape Verde. We need to say that ROPPA has 147 federations today. We also have specific forums for which we call colleges for discussions amongst young people and women. And this is represented at a regional level. Basically, we represent no more than 27 million family farms. And that is why we uphold the interest of these farms by trying to influence the policies that are being designed at national level through the national platform. ROPPA also steps in to uphold the interest of its members. So what are some of the successes in terms of strategy and policy? Well, there is a decision and a strategy which need to be validated by the board. This was taken into account in the 5-year regional program plan 2019-2023. And there is a part which is specifically dedicated to climate resilience and promotion of good agricultural practice based on the principles of agroecology. So that's for the association, the organization itself. Regarding the countries, what successes did we achieve at the strategic and political level? Where we created and strengthened the alliances that were formed amongst countries. Let's take the example of Senegal, for instance. There were alliances that enabled us to dialogue with public authorities and to also leverage resources and strategies which opened the way to efficient actions in the field of agroecology. There has been also an organization in other countries. There was also the implementation of 2 national movements for the promotion of a transition to agroecology at local level. At local level, this was done by what we call the CNR, and both at national and local level, there were contributions by key people who approached politicians of Senegal, in particular people who are in charge of agroecology within the Ministry of Agriculture in Senegal. We need to say that within CNCR, some subsidies were discussed regarding organic fertilizers. Now, as far as Mali, we also had some successes in terms of alliances and coalitions that were created. This enabled dialogue, and there were consultation tables on agroecology. So we are shifting away from the framework of farmers' seeds, but it led to many dialogue opportunities around farmers' seeds for the promotion of agroecology. This plays an important role in those conferences, and it's really important to raise awareness amongst authorities, to have a dialogue with them. So the third framework that was put in place is the platform, a national platform of agroecology. This was done after the organization of the United Nations Forum took place, there was a Master in Agroecology, which was created, and also the platform contributed to the design of a national strategy for agroecology in Mali. What about Niger in terms of strategic successes? Well, in Niger, there was an implementation of a platform which comprises all of the key players, research centers, administration, and so on. This led to the design of training modules which could be leveraged. And so this year we came up with a joint program for the country. The platform has been relying on several processes. These are specific actions which deal with the inclusion of farmers' seeds in the policies which are being developed. And the idea is to have a national strategy on agroecology in Niger. So this is for the platform Aya Tarta, which was created in Niger. Now, in the case of Togo, there was a creation of a national framework which is not yet institutionalized, but there have already been some actions implemented thanks to this framework, and the members of the consortium within the framework of the national platform decided to benefit from a project funded by ECOWAS, and this project also contributed to training and support to farms and farmers. At the regional level, ROPPA contributed to the creation of agroecology alliance in West Africa. This alliance is comprising civil society organizations, institutions, and so forth. At the regional level, there was an institutionalization of a regional forum on agroecology, and the first edition led to another contribution within ECOWAS. At regional level, what we can say about alliances and coalitions, these are forms of dialogues which take place within the framework of FIDA, the part and parcel of programs of the national platform programs, such as in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Senegal, in Côte d'Ivoire, in Ghana, and in the farmers platform of Niger. So you can see that we've been working really hard for the project to see the light of day. We need to say that in terms of cooperation and aid, some of the achievements that I mentioned here could rely on training offers that were proposed by the OPs in the countries. You can see on these images that we have 12 farmers organizations training. And regarding the 12 farms and these 3 formation centers for farmers in Togo, Mali, Niger, and Burkina were created by the producers' organizations, by the OPs, and they do participate to the training of other members. They are raising awareness amongst other producers who are not members of the cooperatives, but through all of these activities, through their practice and the implementation of all these ideas, the idea is that there will be emulation. So this is what we're doing with our training centers and with our farmers' platforms. We have different facilitators who give inputs on different topics. You can see that amongst those who are being trained, you have youth and women. Kosi, you have 1 minute left. Another success that I can share with you is the mutual operation around images and video clips to reinforce the offer of formation. And in operational terms, there has been the development of small-scale markets to be able to sell agroecological products and organic products. This is the case in Mali for the promotion of what we call organic weekends. So these are little farmers markets which are being organized every 2 to 3 months. The idea is to also draw attention of public authorities. So you can see here some of the images illustrating this. Another example of Mali is that they're seeking to have a dialogue with public authorities, municipalities, and local authorities. There is a strong accent put on promoting organic product and agroecological product. Thank you very much for this extremely interesting presentation and for, I know that your organization, ROPPA, is quite active and it's really a perfect case to illustrate. We will share all of the presentations as Axel indicated in Agri-Innovators, and I invite you not only to look at the documents that you can find there, but you can also benefit from some discussions around some key issues such as packaging and other issues like that.
There are some questions for you, of course, always on you know, the means you have and what would be the support, the more urgent support you will need, but also on the pesticide part. And there is also this question for Sophie: how effective is the kind of biopesticide that you use, and do you have problems in that regard? Do you have also problems or successes in marketing effectively all the agroecological products, since, you know, there is not an harmonized or recognized put it that way, certification or something around that type? How do you see that?
For Sophie, there is also a question regarding NIM. How do you use it? Is it an ecological use? Because in certain countries, in other countries, they had some problems regarding microorganisms that were generated when using that type of product. There was also a question about whether there is a good understanding of the organic pesticides which are being used by farmers. Do they understand all the issues associated with the use of those organic pesticides? And small growers, do they really understand the meaning of agroecology versus conventional agriculture?
Is a bit the same. Do you think that the strategy, the agroecological strategy in a country, in a given country in Africa, can be also combined with a more conventional and intensive agriculture in particular regions or provinces or so on? Do you see that this is still possible? I don't have yet questions for the others, but let's start. Nancy, please go on. And anything you want to add, of course. Nancy, are you, is it working? I see you online, but I don't know if you you are muted. Yes, go on.
I'm trying to figure out the question. I didn't get it clearly. I would beg your pardon on that.
Yes, on the biopesticides you use, do you have a particular difficulties with the smallholders? Do they understand? It's a bit the same question for all of you with different angles. Do the smallholders understand what the agroecological practices entail versus do they understand the difference with the conventional agriculture? And do they understand what it means for it? And there are also many questions on the effectiveness of the biopesticides or the organic, pesticides. Do you have any difficulty there?
Okay, what I can say is that right now, most of the small-scale farmers, especially in Uganda, were originally agroecological or organic kind of producers. And then in a bid to produce more, and there was this campaign or a wave of using inorganics that came up, and everyone jumped for them thinking that, oh, I think I will produce, something more than what I'm producing. So some of them had actually left the agroecological way of production to the use of inorganic pesticides and fertilizers. And then they noticed that there are some, it's not a sustainable way because then the yields were going down, and with the help of older generation, they were able to study, for example, if you use chemical pesticides, you kill the insects, you destroy the soil structure basically. So now we had to have them transit back to using, the biopesticides. So what I can say is that sometimes some challenges never really go away, especially if it's a large scale. But slowly, the farmers are discovering what works. For example, if you have an acre of land and you have a product there, a crop that has been affected by, let me say, a pest, and you have a naturally made remedy at home by mixing your herbs and maybe urine, and it works, that is what the farmers scale. So yes, they understand agroecology and they respect it as the best and healthiest way of producing food. Actually, what is also happening is that some of these households they will have a small piece of land where they grow food for home consumption, and that will be grown in a healthy manner. And then they will have a larger piece of land for, let me say, commercial, where they will sell their product. Usually those are the areas where they spray the food. So what we are trying to do is to let them know that they can actually produce agroecologically on all their piece of land, because now there's also a market shift. People are looking for healthy food because of the increase of diseases that come out of consumption of chemicals. So they have that understanding, and as household, they will not consume chemically sprayed products, but they will sell them. So we also want them to shift their mindset into total agroecology production. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nancy. And Rosinah, for example, you know, that question of the combination or not of conventional and agroecological. And there is a question for also in the case of Senegal, but I wanted to ask you if it's also something foreseen in the national strategy of agroecology in Kenya. Is there any kind of subsidies, for example, for organic inputs? Yes, anything you want to add as well. And now again, the market, the same question for all of you, including Noël, and how the market basically, how do we recognize, or how do we appreciate, or how do we, the agroecological products in the market? I think that will really deserve another session, though, you know, because there are many considerations into it. Please, Rosinah.
Thank you so much, Zolina. And the question is clear. Yeah, the strategy first, it also has that aspect of the subsidy, particularly on the policy and enabling policy, so that the subsidy for biological inputs is also a key consideration. The other thing is, of course, as PELUM Kenya, we usually advocate for our farmers to fully embrace organic agriculture practices, because as a network, we are strongly or no to agrochemicals and also no to genetic modified organisms. Yeah, and I've seen farmers who have managed to be able fully into organic agriculture practices. I visited several farmers. Myself, I'm also, in a small way, I'm a practicing peri-urban farmer. So it's possible to really, really support transition, because at the end of the day, we are talking about systems that enhance food sovereignty, that also enhance autonomy of farmers, and which empower the likes of Pamela. I talked about a farmer who is struggling to make food on the table, then you give another burden for her to buy agrochemicals. So I think we are dealing with small-scale farmers, and it's good. We also try to empower them as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There were questions also for Madam Sophie. There was a question specifically for you regarding the use of name, because the participants in certain areas felt that the use of NEM was not necessarily ecological because of some microorganisms that are to be found in the soil. I don't know whether this is your experience also. And some of the main questions that come up over and over is, are growers really aware of what this really means? What is the value, the added value of agroecology compared to conventional agriculture, given the fact that agroecology is not so well known or certified? You are being muted. It's a matter of dosage. You need to use micro doses to obtain some result. It can be extremely efficient against nematodes to prepare the beds Of course, it can be toxic, so it's really a matter of dosage. Now, regarding the attitude or awareness of growers regarding all these products and these methods, well, I think our whole approach is based on raising awareness. So before any training, we try to raise awareness by recalling the principle of the consequences of mono-agroecology. Now, we talk about the toxic effects of some chemical products on health. And I must say, this is a compelling argument for producers. And we also send researchers to farmers together with students to test the product together with the producers, with the growers themselves. So because this is a co-constructed approach, it goes without saying that these products will be used first and foremost by those who have been producing them. Now, the big question about putting on the market is the biggest challenge. You know that our products are, and even organic products are, you know, flooded by amongst a variety of conventional products. So it's really difficult for the families who buy these products. Of course, we have an SPG certification, and people find that there is a big difference in terms of taste, in terms of aspect and conservation of the product. So all of these factors go in the sense of, in the direction of a choice, a preference by the consumers. But we need first to have a conversion of the producers from conventional to agroecological agriculture. Thank you very much, Madame Sophie. We are running slightly late, so I would like to give the floor to Noël. Would you like to add anything, Noël, on this issue? I'm going to share an image to clarify a number of things. We showed this to the growers, and even for those who have industrial crops, because at the end of the day, it's still an activity, it's still a business. So we need to pay attention to cost. And even when growers are not used to think in accounting terms, they still care about the money. So we look at the income and the expenses, and this is the argument we use to convert them to agroecology. And then we conclude by saying, do you think you'll still be around next year? And you know, some people visited us and they were able to convert the following month because of the arguments we used. And these are the comments that we hear all the time. It's difficult, of course, to be in competition with chemical pesticides, and also the price of organic and agroecological product. What I see in Côte d'Ivoire is that the demand for a healthy product is quite high, even higher right now than the supply. And so right now we don't have a problem on this particular aspect. But in order to avoid being niche producers for niche consumers, it requires a lot of education and the involvement of public authorities. You're perfectly right. It's the conjunction of several contributions. To conclude, I have some quick questions with hopefully quick answers. The question about the subsidies about organic input. Is there a specific platform in Senegal for agroecological product? How do you use charwood in this context? Or anything else you want to add, Kosi? Thank you very much for these questions, Isolina, says Kosi. I'd like to answer first the question regarding Senegal. How was it accepted? Well, it's based on dialogue. It's a matter of advocacy, and there needs to be a political willingness at national level. It's not that easy, but we have this advocacy approach with the political authorities who show some willingness to promote agroecology throughout the country. You need to accept using some intermediaries between the organizations of civil society and certain other instances. Some of the players are key players in this field in specific areas, and this has really enabled us to highlight the importance of agroecology for family farming and the importance for the economy. This is a strategy that was put in place and documented. So if you don't mind, I can send you some contacts, the details of the people who really were at the forefront of the process. It is quite a source of inspiration. You will receive all the process and information about the process and documents. Now, regarding the question of understanding of what agroecology is all about and understanding by the small producers, small growers, we need to recognize that in agribusiness, agroecology is not necessarily known by everyone. Some small growers have never heard about it. So this is why we need to seize every opportunity to raise awareness when you are in contact with them through some of your technicians. The big issue is access to the market. Now, some people produce these products for themselves because they know the negative impact of conventional agriculture because of chemical products and chemical inputs. So they produce this for themselves. But the big question is about how to sell these agroecological products. You really need to convince and reach out to the small growers everywhere. I'm sure that people will go for it. If there is a market, many small growers go for it because they sense that there is a market for it, that there is a demand for this. Some people do understand the difference between a tomato that was produced conventionally and one that was produced thanks to agroecology or eco-agriculture. Unfortunately, to have access to the market, they needed to join all the other traders. So small growers are aware of the advantages of agroecology, but the constraints is marketing these products. Now, regarding charcoal, Kosi, thank you very much. We can, for the technical questions, we can have a follow-up later, and we will share political documents later on. Thank you very much.
Guys, for the interpreters, actually, I don't know if Babafemi is still online, because I know he had challenges with the internet connection today, if he wants to add something. But from my side, it's just to thank you all. We will come back to many, because it embraces so many aspects of it that is very difficult in one session to do that. But we bring the different elements on the various sessions. What we learned today is the importance also of all the capacity development around it. I mean, not only, of course, the market, the production, but all the rewards as well on how you contribute to sustainable production. But we also learned that what is important is policies in place, which also include subsidies, like in any other topics that we have seen for many decades. At some point, you need to have some subsidies to just push or accelerate, especially in a case where agroecological practices are so little funded compared to the conventional agriculture. And I take the opportunity to thank the European Commission as well, because part of the work that we are doing at COLEAD, at PAFO, and the Big Desira initiative and so on is really with public money from the EU. But we need policies. We need to share more knowledge, as we have done today, on what's happening and what we get inspired from, what we can scale. And this goes as well, of course, with the funding. So please do not hesitate to share more information. Axel has put the agri-innovators, because it's a bit the place where PAFO and ourselves with partners centralize information, not only on the sessions, but additional resources that we are aware of those exchanges. And we keep in touch for the next sessions. And I thank you very much. Unless, Babafemi, if you are here, please open your micro. If not, and if nobody has anything else to add, thank you very much again, and we will contact you for the next session. Thank you to the speakers, of course, all very, very good. And thank you to the participants for having stayed until the end. Keep well.
Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. À bientôt. Portez-vous bien.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Thank you.
Merci.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Merci beaucoup.